for those of you that have already, communicated or met with Linda, you know how amazing she is. And for those of you that haven't, please take the chance to have that conversation with her and let her share. I mean, in terms of marketing and building your personal brand and power as a female executive and individual, I really don't know many people at the level that Linda's at. There's maybe, in all of my experience on 6 continents and 53 countries and 14,000 hours sharing stages with other speakers and presenters and thought leaders, like Linda's like one of like maybe 2 or 3 that I know that are at a level that is just so incredible. And the best part is that she combines that intelligence and like absolute incredible smarts with a passion and a caring for the people in her community that is really unparalleled. So Linda, thank you so much for what you do for everybody in this group, in this community. And thank you for helping me bring my message to them as well. I really appreciate you. So let's kind of get started for everything that we're going to do today. And I'll jump in with my slides in a minute so we can all follow along. But I do want to start it with this message. We talked about speaking to scale and how to craft these powerful messages. And Linda mentioned, whether you're keynoting or things. I really want everybody to understand that we're always selling something, right? We're always selling, whether that's a product or a service. Maybe you're a coach or a consultant, or maybe you've got a financial product, or maybe you've got an actual tangible product. We're always selling something. And I believe that it's critical that we get really good at being able to promote that, being able to let other people know what we do, how we do it, and why they should follow along with us. And that's what we're going to talk today about. How do you get better at doing that? So let me start sharing here. Let's go. We'll go with there and share that. And there we go. So I kind of call what I do, I call it invitational selling. And by invitational selling, I mean, I don't know about you all online, you could let me know, but how many of you, by show of hands, really love that hard sell when somebody just tries to push what they've got on you and they're like, yeah. No, nobody loves that, right? I see all the heads are shaking. Me either. I don't like that either. The funny thing is, when I started in the business of speaking, I'm a retired chiropractor. I ran 2 offices in New York for over 23 years. And then I sort of had this opportunity to start speaking, and it was a speak to sell sort of an organization. They were the largest personal and professional development company in the US, and then they combined with the largest one in the world. This is the company that promotes Tony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki. And when I started, like, I became their #1 trainer for a number of years, and that also involved sales. And some of their strategies were a little more hard selling, and I can do that, but I don't know, just like you, I don't really like that. So over the years, I've I figured there's got to be a better way to do that. There's got to be a better way to invite people to follow along. Now, if you are the head of your company and you've got employees that are working for you, you have to get them to buy into your mission and your vision to follow through with you. If your employees are following through, if they understand how important what you do is and how important their role in that is, they are far more likely to follow through with you, to help you execute on your goals and the tactics that you've put into your business. And it can really make a huge difference in your success in just about everything that you do. So let's go down here and we'll talk about this one. This is my firm belief that each and every one of you has an incredible gift to share. Now, that gift may be a piece of knowledge that you've got. That gift may be an experience that you've had in the past. It could actually be even a failure or a struggle that you've overcome somewhere in your life. These are the gifts that we have that we can share with other people. I also believe, though, that when we don't share those gifts as eloquently or as clearly, as cogently as we can, we cause suffering in this world. And here's what I mean by that. If you have a product or a service or an idea and you don't share that with somebody, well, then they can't change their lives. And I do believe that every one of you, all of us on this call right now, everybody watching the recording, you've got something that can help somebody else. That's what we sell. That's what people buy from us. They buy something from us, whether they're buying an idea or a concept, or they're buying an actual service or consultation or coaching session. They're buying something that's going to make their lives better. And when we don't get good at helping them do that, then they continue to suffer. And I don't think that's okay. I think that it's easy to fix if we get really good at communicating what we do and how we do it. So let's talk about what I call the 6 P's of speaking success. And to be clear, this is not necessarily about keynote speaking. Now, you can use everything that we're going to talk today in a keynote speech. You can use everything we're going to talk about today in a webinar. I'm actually using the same system, the same strategy that I call invitational selling right now. It's just about sharing information, how you can help, and then inviting people to follow along if they want to. It's a super low stress, low confrontation, and it's such a great way to help people feel comfortable about moving forward, whatever they decide about being okay with that. I do believe, though, that there are 6 things that are really critical to your success, and here they are. There's passion and purpose. That's kind of the first key in there. No matter what you're doing, you have to be excited about it. You have to really kind of, what is it that lights your fire when you wake up in the morning? Now, I've been speaking as a professional for almost 20 years now. And I've heard other people say, like, oh, there's all this travel and you have to go to the hotels and the flights are late, your luggage gets lost and all this sort of stuff. And they sort of get burnt out about that. I've been doing this for 20 years. And every time that I know that I have an event that I'm going to go speak at, I am as excited as if you were going on the best vacation you ever had. You know how you feel the night before you go on vacation and you're all excited? Like, that's how I feel every morning before I know I'm going to travel to an event for speaking. So this is my passion. This is what I love. Now, part 2 of that is, what is your purpose? How do you help? What is it about what you do that helps other people improve their lives? What is it like? Why are you here on this earth to do? For me, I really think it's about helping people get clear about sharing their gifts. Like, I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing every day. So this is why I love this. Now, after that, you have the preparation part. And that's where you have to do a little bit of the work ahead of time. You can't just expect to go out and be really great at communicating what it is that you do and getting people to follow along if you're not really sure. My favorite example of that is if you've ever been to a wedding and somebody does the toast for the bride and the groom, and you always get, the best man or the bridesmaid gets up and they go, well, I didn't really put anything together. Like, it wasn't a surprise. You should have known that something. And most of the time, they're horrendous. They're really horrible and they're rambling. I think in business, though, sometimes we do the same thing. When we don't prepare what we're going to say and how we're going to say it, the effect that it creates doesn't really land. Now, after the preparation part, that's the presentation. That's when you work on, how do I talk? How do I speak? When do I raise my voice? Where do I move? Do I move different places in a room? Maybe you're on a webinar. Am I using my hands? Do I use questions while I'm doing that? Now, I've been doing a lot of those things while I'm doing this one, so I want to kind of demonstrate what I'm doing. And then we get to the last 2 parts, and this is everybody's favorite part. There's the promotion, and that's where you offer something. Now, I'm going to offer you to follow me along and help us create this business and grow this business in a way that can actually serve people and help people. And then that following, without promotion, there's no profit, right? So, Linda, your expertise is in marketing. Marketing is about, how do you take that message and about what you do and how you do it? And how do you get that out into the world so that they even know who you are? Like, sometimes people just don't know that you exist. You are the greatest secret in the world. You've got a great program. You've got a great service, but not enough people know who you are. I 100% believe that speaking, getting in front of, whether it's a room, a webinar, a Zoom call, or a live event, there is no better way to convey the value of what you do to your audience in a way that causes them to take action with you. I think there's no better way to do that. And that leads to your profit. And profit is a great word. I really believe that, we talk about sales, and this is invitational selling, but I think sales equals service. You will only make a sale if you provide value for someone, if they perceive that there's going to be a benefit for them. And sales and money and profit, that's just this metric that we use to see how good are we at delivering that value? How good are we at conveying it to somebody else so that they understand, I can help you get better at this. I can help you create more clients. I can help you sell more product. I can help you help more people. That's what the message that you need to convey across. So why don't people do that? Why aren't people great at promoting? And I think it's because of all these little self-talk things that we have going on. There's, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. Who am I to go out to the world and tell them about this product? And there's all this self-talk that we have that doesn't always serve us to the best. But I think if you create that sort of attitude, that mindset where I'm coming of service and all I want to do is help, well, then things become pretty amazing. And so let me share a little story about that with you, if you would. So this is a photograph of my daughter, Lauren. Some of you have heard me talk about her in the past. Lauren, this was when she was about 9 years old. Lauren passed away when she was 17, about 10 years ago. Lauren had a brain tumor that had grown and caused her to become partially paralyzed. She'd gone through numerous courses of chemotherapy, 27 different brain surgeries, radiation treatment. She just had gone through a lot in her life. And yet she was the most positive, fun, exuberant human being you'd ever met. I tell people, if you squeezed her, she would fart a rainbow. That's how cool this little girl was. And what Lauren loved to do is she loved to hand out these little bead bracelets that you see her holding up there. I've got one near my desk right here, and I've got the other one that she made me is right in front here. And this one, by the way, this one's all hearts that she made me because it's just all love. But every of the other ones have stars, butterflies, and hearts. And what Lauren would do is her mission, her thing was she just wanted to help people smile. And she would go out and she would say, hey, I put stars, butterflies, and hearts. And she said, I put love, energy, and power in every single bead. And then she would give them away. She'd go do you have any daughters? Are you married? And she would give you she would give the ladies advice. And the advice was, here's what you do. You tell your husband to give you a bell and he gets an apron. And then every time you ring the bell, he has to come running and say, yes, my queen, what may I get for you? That was her advice for everybody that she met. And she spread smiles everywhere she went. Now, Lauren would also sometimes sell those bead bracelets. So let me tell you just a little story about that. 4th of July, 2006 is on there. We go down to the beach in Long Beach, Long Island. Lauren and her brother. Now, they've always been very entrepreneurial. So they decide they're going to do some things to make some money. So Christopher and his friend Tristan, they're going to go down to the beach and they're going to paint these seashells that you saw on there. 2 for $1. They're going to go up there. So they take their magic markers. They found some clamshells. They drew up a sign. They go up onto the boardwalk. It was 95 degrees and it was blazing hot. And they're up on the hot boardwalk, not down near the water. Lauren and I, oh, by the way, so they're up there about 2.5 hours. There's their profit. $1 is their combined sales, and they had to split that. Now, Lauren and I walked around the beach, and Lauren had a little plastic baggie full of her bracelets. And she would walk up. Now, she would grab my elbow. Lauren she had lost her vision, but she could walk and everything still at the time. And she would grab my elbow. We'd walk up. I go, hey, Lauren, we're going to come up. Looks like a dad, maybe his wife and a teenage daughter. And she goes, all right, I got it, Dad. And she'd walk up and she'd say, and this is what she said. Hi, my name is Lauren. I make these bead bracelets. I put love, energy, and power in every single bead. They're $10 each. How many would you like? And then she wouldn't say anything. In about 15 minutes, she had $85 in her Ziploc bag, and she had sold all of her bracelets. Now, 3 hours up on the beach trying to sell a seashell, or 15 minutes and sells $85 worth of plastic beads. That, I mean, considering there's 24 beads in a bracelet and some string, it's approximately 25 cents worth of material that she was selling for $10. Which brings me to one of the lessons that I teach in invitational selling. It's not about the cost of your product. It's about the value that it brings, right? Her value was that love, energy, and power. So let's talk about the 6 keys of invitational selling, of speaking, right? So let's talk about passion. Did Lauren have passion? Absolutely. Like, this was her thing. All she wanted to do was make people smile. And by the way, she did sell the bead bracelets, but she gave away thousands and thousands and didn't sell them. But when she did, she owned that, right? How about purpose? Well, her purpose was just to make people smile and to give the ladies advice on how their husbands and boyfriends should treat them. Preparation, yeah, well, she had to make the beads. Now, at this point, she was making them. Later on, she actually outsourced the beads to her mom and her dad, and her cousins and all of her friends would help her make bracelets so she could give them away. The presentation, she owned it. It was a very clear message. My name is Lauren. I make these bead bracelets. They're stars, butterflies, and hearts. Love, energy, and power. They're $10. How many would you like? Right? And how about that, the presentation? Then the promotion, she had no problem with owning her value, about really being okay with saying, this is worth it. And everybody was smiling and they were all happy when they left. Like, nobody was like, oh, I can't believe I had to buy this bracelet. It was an offer, and that's all that we can do. And then finally, we need to talk about profit. And yep, she profited. She had $85. And then she bought all of her cousins ice cream because she didn't really even care about the money. It was just kind of like a fun thing for her. And then she used to give it away. Our favorite charity is the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So Lauren would donate a large portion of her money to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Some of it she'd buy more beads with, and the rest she spent on her cousins and her brother to get them ice cream and stuff. So why is it that a 9-year-old is awesome at promotion and we're not? What is that? And I think it's the mindset that goes along with that. I like to think about it as this. I've got a program called Building Your Business from the Stage, and it's about how do you get better at sharing that message? Well, if you don't, each and every one of you have a service, you have a product, you have an idea. I see Kathy Durkin's on the line. Kathy, yours is helping people to become authors. Well, in order to do that, in order to be part of one of the books, I know that they have to pay for that value, but what it does is it gives them exposure. It gives them credibility. It gives them something that they can use when they're looking to speak and promote their ideas and their services and their products. But if you don't offer it to them, well, they can't be helped. And I liken it to somebody who's drowning. They're in the water, and all of our clients, all of our prospective customers, they're struggling with something. They're literally drowning financially, drowning emotionally, drowning in their relationships. And you could help them. And it's just a matter of just reach out. Here's the life ring. If you want it, grab it. You can't make them take it, but it's about making that offer and being comfortable with the value that you're going to bring to them. And then let them decide. Let's talk about mindset. One of my very first consulting clients was a woman by the name of Kelly Coffey, and Kelly is amazing. Now, this is an amazing picture of Kelly. Kelly, though, used to weigh over 300 pounds, and she had battled her weight for years and years and years. She had done surgery. She'd done the banding surgery. She'd done the drug. This was all pre-Ozempic. Nothing ever worked, though. No matter what she did, she regained the weight. until something happened in her life and she realized that it was never about the food or the exercise. It was about her emotional things that were going on inside, dealing with personal shame and self-esteem issues and self-doubt issues. And she was able to actually change her mindset about that. And when she did, she's like, wow, I can help people. So she created a community to help other women who primarily had weight issues or body issues. But they also suffered from a lot of self-esteem issues and self-shame issues. And she had an amazing coaching program to help them. I mean, absolutely beautiful, beautiful person who every single day, 365 days a year, she is online communicating with them personally. To this day, she still does that every single day. This is her mission. This is something she's passionate about, but she wasn't getting people to know about it, and she wasn't getting them to sign on to her program, which was ridiculously inexpensive, by the way. And that's often another problem. The things that you offer are just too cheap, and people think it's not any value if it's that cheap. So that's a separate issue for another day, maybe. But here's what we did. With Kelly, we did work on revising her webinar, but part of what we did with Kelly is we worked on her mindset. And I sort of my speech for this is, if you don't share your gift, you're being selfish, because these women need your help. And Kelly finally understood that. And when she did that, she redesigned her PowerPoint using what we taught. She redid it. Sales jumped 600% immediately and stayed there. And I love what she says. It's more money. Yeah, but she's helping 6 times more people and having 6 times more fun. Like, when you get good at promoting what you do, it's not a struggle. It's just fun, and you help more people. So skill set and mindset is number one. Changing from where you're thinking, hey, I'm just trying to sell you something, to I've got something that can help you, is a huge mind shift. All right. Now, the second thing we need to talk about is your skill set. So what does that mean? Well, promotional talks will increase your sales. Keynote speeches will lead to more stage side leads, and consultants or trainers will get more contracts if you up your skill set. And by the ones we're going to talk about today are storytelling and something called seeding. Now, one of the things that I wanted to cover today is, number one, how do you structure a message that makes a big difference? Well, number one, that starts with your mindset. The second part of that is, what are some of the strategies that you can use? And that's storytelling and seeding. If you want to increase your sales, well, doing a talk in front of somebody, by the way, is one of the best ways that you can possibly do that. You've got maybe 60 minutes to be in front of somebody to explain who you are, how you can help, and what their next steps should be, and what their life will look like if they work with you. And probably you can also let them know what it's going to look like if they don't. And then you let them make a decision. And there's no pressure in that. It's just common sense. And if you do it well, and you come from the right place, tapping into your passion, tapping into your purpose, well, then people get a chance to say, I like her. I want to work with her. And then you do. You're in this community because you know Linda Fisk and you like her and you wanted to work with her. Well, good for you, because you're in the right place. I mean, she's brilliant at what she does. But Linda does. She gets in front of people and she talks about what she does, and she communicates very clearly. And these are some of the reasons why she's been so successful. Here's another great, this is a personal friend of mine. Some of you may have heard her speak. Her name is Elizabeth McCormick. Elizabeth was a former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and a professional speaker. She speaks 120 events, 120 engagements a year, and she's bumping that up. You may have seen her on TV. She gets interviewed all the time. If there's ever any problems with helicopter issues, you see her get interviewed by CNN and MSNBC and all the major networks. But she did a webinar because she also has a program where she helps, and it's a lot of women, but it's women and men, and primarily in the coaching and consulting industry. And she's promoting a cruise. So she did a webinar. She said, hey, Dennis, would you come on my webinar and do it? Her webinar was like 90 minutes, or it was like an hour and 30 something minutes long. She had a whole bunch of people. She had a few sales on it. And she asked me how, and it was rambling. Now, I know Elizabeth, she is really great at what she does. She loves what she does. She loves helping people, but her webinar was just, it was pretty bad. So I shared with her the strategies, and some of them we're going to go over today about how do you structure it? What stories do you put in? What stories do you leave out? And I talked about seeding. The net result is she did the same webinar a day later. It was half as long to half as many people, and she had double the sales. Now, if you want to help people, if they don't buy your program, you can't help them because they don't have your program, so it's of no help to them. I want to get you to get better at selling and offering your program. Let's talk about that. So the first one is storytelling. Now, I've already told you a couple of stories. I told you the story about Lauren. I shared another story about another person. I shared a story about Kelly. I shared a story about Elizabeth. Stories are a great way for you to connect and explain your value. And really, here's what you want to do in storytelling, or what storytelling can accomplish if it's done, and listen carefully, strategically, right? Strategic storytelling. Include stories that are important for the end goal of your engagement, of your being in front of people, of your speech, of your board meeting, of your Zoom call. Include the stories that are going to move people in the direction that you hope that they move, and that you invite them to move, not just every story. And here's what storytelling does. It lets you convey the value that I get you. Like, I get you. I know that at every level of leadership, there is a challenge. There are a number of challenges, but there are challenges getting people to follow you. I always think I am amazingly clear about my instructions to everybody. But life has taught me that very often what I think they heard is not what they think they heard. So you need to be clear about that. And I get that's a problem for each and every one of you watching here. We have challenges with the internet these days. There is so much information out there. Our messages get lost, or they can, unless they become very, and I like to use the word sticky. How do you create a message that people will remember and then be able to act on? So, number one is you have to let them know that you get them, and storytelling allows you to do that. Number two, it lets you help say, hey, listen, there's a solution. I've sort of hinted at one, I mentioned one already. Like, I have a 3-day program called Building Your Business from the Stage. It teaches you how to design a 60-minute presentation for whatever it is that you do. There are pieces that fit in there. And if you have the pieces, things work. So there's a solution. And then the last part is you are the solution, right? You're the person that does it. So for me, like, I've got this program and this is the solution. If you do this, it's going to work. But whatever you're doing, this applies to you. It lets you let your audience know that you get them. You let them know that there's a solution. And I'm going to encourage you to share some of your solution with them. Whenever you speak to anybody, I have a couple of rules when I help people get better at this. Rule number one is don't sell junk. Only sell things that are really good, that are going to make a difference. And I refuse to help people that won't abide by that. There are a lot of charlatans out there, and I will not help them get better at selling their junk, right? All right. So you let them know there's a solution, and you do that by sharing part of that solution with them. That's what I'm hopefully doing with you today. And then let them know, if you want more, I can help. You are the solution. You can help take them to that next level. And then you invite them to make a decision. Invite them to follow along with you. And it's super simple and super easy. Couple of things in the storytelling formula, right, is number one, share a struggle or something that you dealt with when you started out. But now, by the way, it might be your struggle. It could be the struggle of one of your other clients. It could be a struggle of somebody that you heard or read about. Reveal that turning point. What is it that changed? So, for example, when I shared that story about Kelly, her struggle was her weight loss. And what she realized was that it was her self-esteem. That's the revealing the turning point. Once she realized it wasn't the weight, it wasn't the food, it wasn't the diet, it wasn't the exercise, it was her self-belief, she was able to change her mindset. That's the solution. And now look at Kelly. I mean, she's beautiful. She's amazing. And by the way, she is even more beautiful on the inside than on the outside. She is absolutely an incredible human being. And then you just share that story with people and invite them to share in the same journey and do the same thing. Now, we talked about what is the number one mistake that people make in communicating? And that's this one: falling in love with your own stories. Ladies, and if there are any gentlemen watching this later on, I have a lot of stories. I've been through a lot in my life, between the things with my daughter and relationships and finances, just like each and every one of you have. I don't tell every single one of those awesome stories or horrible stories or powerful stories every single time I speak. I choose the ones that are important. And sometimes I have to, let me give you an example. I used to sell a program called Train the Trainer. And I had it's a funny story about how I literally got into this field. It is hysterical. And I have all the physicality. It is like a stand-up routine. And I love that story. It did nothing to promote the program. I just told that story because I loved that story and I loved telling it. And I loved when people laughed and it made me feel good. And then I realized, this really isn't about them, the audience. This was about Dennis, feeling good about Dennis. And that wasn't why I was in front of them. I was in front of them to serve them, not myself. And when I kind of came to that realization, I stopped telling that story. Now, I still tell it other times, but I didn't tell it there. And that's what I mean about being strategic about storytelling. Now, falling in love with your own story also means falling in love with your own advice, falling in love with your own line of thinking, and maybe forgetting to realize that, there are other ways to think about things. Mine's not the only way. I completely understand that. But I know that with my clients, the ones that use it, it really works and it works really well. Are there other things that work well? Sure. Give it a shot. See what works for you. I'm just inviting you to join my journey. And if that works, fantastic. But be open to the idea that maybe I don't need to tell the story. Maybe this shouldn't be part of my presentation. And if you are going to put a story into a presentation, what is the reason that it's there? What is the lesson or the moral or the takeaway from that story? And please make sure that it moves or helps move your audience to making the decision to something that's going to change their life. All right. So that's storytelling. Here's the other element, the other thing that can really help you with your presentations, and it's called seeding. Okay. Now, what I mean by seeding is subtly and gently hinting about a product, a program, or a service that you've got that you're going to introduce to them later on. Now, already during this presentation, I have seeded a program that I have, and I'll let you know about it later on. It's called Building Your Business from the Stage. All right. Now, I'm calling it out. I'm telling you that I said it a couple times already, so that I want you to be aware. Some of you may have noticed that I said it. Some of you may have heard me say it and just never thought anything about it. But in the back of the mind, what I kind of want to do is I want to plant a little idea inside the head, and then I'll water it a little bit throughout the course of the presentation so that you can offer it later on. Say, hey, listen, if you like it, here's what you do. Let me know. And that's the end of that. But seeding is an extremely powerful way to increase your conversions and your effectiveness when you're selling, whether it's an idea, product, or service. It's the same for all of them. So a couple of different seeding techniques. There are about 10 of them that we do in our program, but I'll do 3 of them here today. Number 1 is the question asked seed. So one of the questions that I get all the time is, all right, listen, Dennis, I know that I want to talk about this, but how do I incorporate this into my talk? Well, that right there, what I just did was the question asked seed. So if there's something that you want to talk about, Think about, has anybody ever asked you that in the past? Has anybody ever asked you about this? So what I might say if I were you is, this is probably the number one question that my clients ask me all the time. And then now the question that they ask, by the way, this is strategic and very intentional, is the one that you want to talk about for them and to deliver their value. People say, what is the most effective things that I can do to become more effective as a speaker? It's definitely seeding and storytelling, which is why that's what we're talking about today. It is the most effective ways to increase the results of your talks. All right. So the question asks seed. I get this question all the time. Somebody asked me the other day, I was working with a client over at XYZ Corporation, and this is what they said is going on in their industry. And they asked me what I should do about that. That lets your audience know, A, you work with XYZ type companies in this type of an industry and handle that kind of a problem. And then you give them a solution to that problem. All right. So that's the question ask seed. The other one is your personal story seed. Now, I've shared a couple of personal stories with you already. It gives you the opportunity to share a story with a lesson that is related to what you want to do. When I started speaking, by the way, I will tell you, I was a chiropractor for 23 years. I was not a speaker, but I did attend programs. I belonged to masterminds. I belonged to organizations just like leadHERship Global. There were some in the chiropractic profession. There were some business ones. And I loved personal development. I loved taking those extra programs, those extra services. And while I was at one of them, I got invited. The owner of this really large training company was like, hey, did you ever think of training for us? And I was like, no, I have not. And I said, well, what would be involved with that? And they mentioned, training. And I was like, oh, you know what? I could give it a go. They invited me to do something. So they said, here's what you have to do. You have to volunteer. You just have to put in some time as a volunteer to learn how our events run. I was like, okay, I can do that. I have some time and I have other doctors running my offices. And I said, oh, and then eventually you'll be the warm-up guy, which means you get up on the stage and you say, hey, everybody, come on back into the room. We're about to get started for like the main guy. So the first time that I get invited to do the warm-up guy thing is in front of 1,700 people in the Meadowlands, New Jersey, in a convention center. And I was petrified. I tell people, if you took a charcoal briquette and put it between my butt cheeks, like 15 minutes later, I would have given you a diamond. Like, I mean, I was sweating. I was nervous. Like when your voice cracks and stuff. Like I had never been more frightened or everything. But at the same time, I don't know if you've ever had this experience in your life. And I hope that if you haven't, at some point that you do. But in that moment, despite how afraid I was, I had this, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. Right. And I have goosebumps even just recalling that. Like it was like, I was, nearly 40 years old before I started this journey. It took me 40 years to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I know what I want to be when I grew up. And it was so amazing. So that's why I love sharing, like, how does everyone else get better at doing this? We can help so many more people if we get better at communicating that message. Now, that was a personal story. By the way, it's a true story. So tell your stories whenever possible. It helps people relate and really understand, all right, who is this guy? Why would I want to work with Dennis? Why should I trust him? What's about his background that makes this something that I would want to do myself? And then they get to not only, know that you understand them and you get them. Number two, that there's a solution. Number three, now that you understand the solution and you understand why that solution is so important. And now it also kind of helps them figure out what to do next. And then you just share that story. This is one of the reasons why the stories are important and the personal story seed is so important. Like all the skills that I learned when I first started and selling, oh my God, trying to sell anything from the front of the room, I was the worst person in the entire organization. And thankfully, the people that run the company, the guy that ran the organization, he understood that, all right, this is a learning curve. But for a big company who puts 1,500, 2,000 people in a room, if you suck at selling, it costs the company a lot of money. Now, I understood that. And I also understood and felt like I wanted to get good at this. And that's why I learned all the things that I share at Building a Business from the Stage are all about the things that I learned that made me feel more comfortable helping people. And by the way, the programs that I was selling, just so you know, I had taken every single one of those programs personally. I'd gone through them all myself, and they changed my life, like transformed my life. So I knew that this was valuable, usable, actionable stuff. And I just wanted other people to experience the same thing that I had. So I believed in it 1,000%. And I still do, by the way. But I just was terrible at communicating its value. And because of that, a lot of people went home just thinking, oh, he was just trying to sell me stuff. Instead of, oh, that guy was really trying to help me understand how I could change my life. Like those are different mindset things. And once I learned about that mindset and then started using the skills that I'm sharing with you here, then sales got better, which meant more people got helped. And I hear all the time from people about that. All right, here's one more seeding strategy, and that's the extra bonus seed. So when you say you want to share, hey, listen, can I share something a little extra for you? And then you're going to share something like a little bit different that you will offer or something else. So I'd like to share an extra bonus with you, and that's an offer for you to join us for the Building Your Business from the Stage event. We've got one coming up in September. And for leadership Global, we've reduced the tuition by 50% for you. So this is a special, that QR code on there is a link. I'll put another QR code, or I'll ask Linda to send you one later. But this is for 50% off of the tuition. It's $5,000 for the program. In the past, when I work with joint venture partners, just so you know, this isn't like, this is a $10,000 program. You've seen this, by the way. This is, if you take this value and this value and this value, it's worth $975,000, but today only $97. You've seen people do that value stacking thing, which makes me a little crazy. I offer this program. We sell this program to attorneys and to professional service providers and to executives and leaders for $7,500. Now, it's that much because I split it with another person, but this one is just me. So we're offering it for $5,000, but for everyone on the call and everyone watching today, half off, $2,500 savings. Just use that QR code that you see on there. We'll take you right to the page. The page, by the way, has a lot more information about what the program's about. And it also has a way to contact me. So if you just want to have a conversation and reach out to me, there's a link to my calendar on there, and we can just have a call and talk about it. This program is 3 very amazing days. It's limited to about 20 people. I do not do big events. This is incredibly hands-on. And the thing that I love about this program that I've built is that this isn't a you come in and I explain what to do and tell you all the stuff and then I send you home to do it. This is a done at the program. So what happens is we'll talk about, hey, listen, what's the introduction part of a program? What do we do? I show you an introduction and then we stop. I'll explain what I just did, why that's so important. And then you write your own, and then you get up in front of the room and do it with live coaching from me. Once we finish that introduction part, then we go to the part that goes in the middle of a program. And that includes, hey, what stories do I put in? How do I get better at telling that story? What sort of seeding techniques do we do? And how do we use those? And like I said, I've got 10 of my favorites, the ones that I think are really effective. We did 3 of them today, but we'll go over a few more of them at the live event. But all of that is every time I explain what's going on, then you write your own version of it, and then you get up in front of the room for some live coaching from me and some live feedback from the other people in the audience. That's one of the reasons why we limit it to 20, so that everybody gets multiple chances to get up in front of the room. And by the time we finish on Sunday, you're actually going to have completely not only written, but delivered your very own 30-minute version of your presentation, right? It's the only difference between a 30-minute and a 60-minute. You still have to have a really awesome beginning. You have to have a really incredible close. The difference is how much stuff you put in the middle. Do you put one piece of information, maybe 2 ideas, or maybe 3 ideas? That's a 30, a 45, or a 60-minute presentation. And what I do is I give you the scaffolding, I call it. What are the pieces? What are the building blocks that need to go in there? Just to be clear, this is not about how to become a keynote speaker. This is about how, as a business person, as a thought leader, you can use speaking as a tool to promote and deliver your ideas, products, and services. And it is incredibly effective. You'll see a bunch more testimonials and some videos from people that have been through the event. And this is a little pet peeve of mine, but I don't have videos of people that went to the event and go, "Oh, this is a great event. I loved it. Dennis was amazing." Like, all right, that's great. But what I want to know is, what did you do with that information a week later, a month later, a year later? So a lot of the testimonials are on there about how did people use the information they learned, and what did it produce for them in real life? And I think that's the more important thing. So that's the link to the thing. I want to leave you with one last story for today. I was doing some outreach on LinkedIn, and a lot of it was using some AI, using some automation. All right, there are some great tools out there to do that. So I did some outreach and automation, and somebody responded back to me. And they said, there was a little message from a gentleman named John, and he said, "Hey, Dennis, I don't know if you remember me, but I was at one of your events." And in his message, he said, "About 7 years ago." And I was like, "Oh, okay. And I bought one of your daughter's bracelets." And he said, "It's sitting on my desk right now." Now, he said he met my daughter, 7 years ago. Well, Lauren passed away 10 years ago. Lauren used to come up on stage with me, and she would sell her bead bracelets with the same pitch that she did at the beach at these live events. And that money would be donated to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. That was our charity. That was one of our deals when we did that. But she loved it, and she loved being up on stage and all that kind of stuff. But the last time she was on stage was at least 2 years before that, which means that bracelet had been on his desk for 12 years. And he said, "Every morning when I get to work, I see that and it makes me smile." Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's really pretty cool, right? A little girl who made bead bracelets that put love, energy, and power in there has had an effect on somebody for 12 years. Lauren couldn't see. She had trouble walking. She was wheelchair bound. Half her body was paralyzed after one of her brain surgeries. And yet that's the impact that she had on people, making them smile 10 years after she's passed away. My question for you is, what kind of impact are you making with the services that you have to offer? We all have full use of our arms and legs and our brains and our vision. And we have these great ideas, and you have amazing people like Linda in your life to help support you and nurture you and bring you up to the next level. What are you doing with that? And are you getting really good at explaining what to do? In life, you are going to have dozens, if not hundreds, of opportunities opportunities to change people's finances, to change their relationships, to change the way they think about their life, to change their health, their exercise habits, their mindset, their business strategies, their retirement planning, their travel, the places that they're going to live. You're going to have tons of those opportunities. And then you're going to have a bunch of questions. I don't know. Do I have the skills to do that? Can I get out there? Am I going to know what to say? Will I really be able to help them? Are they going to just think I'm trying to sell them something? Do they think I'm going to be too pushy? What if they don't like me? What if they don't like my message? What if they don't like my services? And there's going to be dozens of those questions. And for all those opportunities that come up, with all those questions that I mentioned, I think there's only one question that you have to think. When it comes to those opportunities to change a life, to change health, to change a relationship, to change finances, to change their retirement savings, to change their mindset, to change their happiness level and their emotional and their heart level, the only question you have to ask yourself about those opportunities for you is how many would you like? And then just get better at sharing what you do. It'll all work out. Come from the right place, come from the passion, and then get good at the skill of telling and sharing what you do with people. Do that, and you will start creating such an incredible impact on this world. Hey, I do want to thank you. Just one more time, I'll throw up that QR code if you haven't took a snapshot already. That's it, ladies and gentlemen.